Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to The Bunker. As many of you know, I like to speak to fellow former Jehovah's Witnesses. I have one with me today, Luke Dygert. Welcome to the channel.
Hey, awesome to be here. I appreciate the invite.
It's really good to speak to you. I understand you have an interesting story. You did, as I understand, grow up in, is it the Patterson area?
Yeah, I grew up about 20 minutes from Patterson, so that had its unique experiences for sure. Yeah.
I'm sure it did. So before we get into some of these experiences, perhaps you could share roughly how you came to be involved with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Sure. So basically, I am a third generation witness, both sides of my family. And pretty much it was a little bit unique because everyone in my family stayed a witness. Very, very few, maybe one or two cousins kind of faded. But, I really was surrounded by it. So from a childhood, I grew up with it. Used to think I was quite privileged to being born in a witness family in the middle of the world headquarters. Used to pep talk myself that I owe it to the world to, I was just so privileged.
Yeah, what are the chances of that? You've not just been born into God's one and only true religion, but you also happen to have been born into a family that lives close to where it's all happening. Yeah.
I think I was, I don't know the right word, but I took it seriously enough that I think I used the term for myself, those to whom much is given, much is expected. So I think I had a superhero complex going on. Yeah.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility, something like that. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So, and how did this manifest itself in the privileges that you reached out for?
Yeah. I think all I ever cared about was going to Bethel, because I was around it. There were, like you always say, the people I did enjoy, and you did get some cool people that were coming from all over the world. So to me, the only thing that ever made sense was Bethel. So from a young age, that's what I did. I pioneered a team. I applied to Bethel when I turned 19, got accepted a few months after for full-time at Walk Hill. That's another story. I blew that one. I ended up getting uninvited 2 days before my...
Right. No, there's definitely a story there. So how do you get uninvited from Walk Hill?
Yeah, it's a good story. In a way. Well, when you're getting ready to go to Bethel, you got to get a laptop. And for a 19-year-old who now has access to the internet that you've been, denying yourself that, the first thing you probably type in is boobs. So, yeah, I think that may have been what happened. And I had a conscience meltdown. So I had to literally the Sunday before I was supposed to go, I went to the elders. I was like, yeah, so I did this, and I had to go to the branch committee. It took 2 days for them to get back to me. And then the day before I was supposed to go, they were like, yeah, we're not punishing you, but just because we'd have to write a letter to your new congregation, it wouldn't reflect well on us that someone who's, involved in porn would be in Bethel. So I was uninvited.
So the conversation with your elders went something like, I've just got a new laptop and I must confess I typed in boobs in the search bar. That was what that was.
I don't know if those were the exact words, but that was the gist of it. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, basically, that kind of actually threw my life in a spiral. I got into a little bit of major anxiety, and my whole life, I think I spent excessive amount of times, if I saw any type of picture, I'd be like, did I just look at porn? And I would get OCD about it. And I went on to, all kinds of anti-anxiety medicines because of this, experience. But,
I think that really speaks though to the paranoia that you have growing up in this religion when you really, really take it seriously, because I know I can relate to those sorts of feelings of guilt. I can relate to sitting at the meeting and thinking, right after this meeting, I need to hunt down so-and-so elder and tell him about the fact that I've done this, or the fact that I've thought this, Yeah. And I can remember that happening and then the meeting ending. And for some reason, finding a reason not to do that. So the fact that you kind of went ahead, it just shows how seriously you were taking your religion, and also how much control this religion exerts in the area of sexuality, which really messes people up. And you're already talking here about taking antidepressant medication.
Yeah, hands down. I mean, I don't think it's unique. I think there's probably quite a few witnesses that just ruminate on mistakes, and that you just can't get over it. And it's so, medicine takes it away. So, a lot of people are on that just because of guilt. But, yeah.
And when it comes to sexuality, you're always going to be on a cycle of guilt, because no matter what your sexuality, whether you're gay or straight, there are going to come times when you have thoughts that aren't in harmony with what's expected of you, because the only way you can express your sexuality as a Jehovah's Witness is in a heterosexual marriage. That's the only way. So everything outside of that might pop into your head, or God forbid, actually happen in real life, is going to send you spiraling into this state of utter guilt and fear. And it's really nasty, the impact that has on people.
Oh, it's brutal. It really is. So that I didn't go to Bethel, which ended up actually being, I think, amazing. I then decided, forget this, maybe I'll never go. I need graded a little bit in Costa Rica. Got to travel a bit, which was really cool. But, I think one thing led to another. I got married very young. I was 22. And then, kept just doing what I should do. I got appointed as an elder at 26. I did end up serving in Brooklyn. Actually, they did re-invite me. I went there for a little while. I was dating though, so I didn't stick around more than 6 months.
6 months is still a fair whack to be in Brooklyn, though. What was it like being in Brooklyn? and presumably this was just before you got married, was it?
It was right before. I think I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah, Brooklyn was awesome because it was not Bethel. I always used, Patterson, we all give it the nickname the country club because everyone's, real friendly. Everybody waves. In Brooklyn, you walk by people, and you don't even acknowledge them. I love that. That just felt real. But, I was a waiter. I got, to rub shoulders a few times with some of the governing body members in the morning. They'd walk in, say hello. But, all in all, it was hanging out with guys. Good basketball. Yeah. Like I always say about Bethel, I love the basketball and the food. I think that's all I missed when I left, it is good people. For the most part, you meet a lot of people just like yourself, you just don't realize what you're in.
But you would say in 6 months, you didn't really have any experiences that really kind of stayed with you as kind of either being shocking or otherwise kind of helped you learn more about the religion?
Well, you know how it is. I think growing up near Bethel, you hear a lot of things, like there were people that just one day, you knew they had a big position and all of a sudden the next day they're getting escorted out. And they're disfellowship. You see these things and you're always just confused. I think you always just think, they lost their mind. They went nuts. There were a lot of different serious things that happened while I was around Patterson. There were a lot of scandals. You could say that, you would see wives leaving with single brothers. It would come in waves. But all in all, it doesn't shock you. I don't know how, as when you're in it, it just doesn't wake you up somehow. You would think it would. But okay, no,
so you definitely saw evidence that not everyone who was in Bethel was able to live up to the standards, and that there was probably just as much scandal going on as you might expect in a congregation.
I think it's an accurate reflection of the population in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's very different.
Okay.
Just people.
And you get married at the age of 22, so I'm guessing that you must have known your wife while you were in Brooklyn.
I did. Yeah. So we're still dating. I was driving, back to the Patterson area every weekend. So, that kind of kept me a little bit distanced too, because to get the full experience, you kind of got to just be there all the time. And I always was leaving, but so I met her. We left. And then, like I said, at about 26 years old, I got appointed, served for 5 years as an elder, which, was, there were good and bad moments to that. But I think I felt it's a great feeling to be part of the guys club. You probably felt that a little bit at times, it's nice to feel included. You kind of feel a little special, like you matter. So I don't think I would have ever waken up. I never think that elders really wake up right away. It's very rare.
I guess for me, I mean, you say about the guys club. Yeah. I think it's nice to feel like you are in an exclusive club. I don't think there was ever a moment where I thought, you know what, this would all be so much worse if people in this club were women. You just didn't kind of, or for speaking for myself, I didn't really connect at that point in my life with the misogyny. Sure. I just thought, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. And given the way this is supposed to be, it is quite nice to be in a position where I'm able to, I don't know, I'm able to contribute. I'm able to have a voice in important conversations. But if it had been different and if women had been included, I still would have just appreciated it being kind of an exclusive club with women in it. It's just that obviously women aren't involved because they take those verses very seriously in the New Testament, don't they, about women not being even allowed to teach.
Oh, yeah. And, you're not even really supposed to speak with your wives about what's going on. I don't know that everyone follows that to the T.
No, I don't think they do. Pretty sure much all elders' wives are in on what's going on. Yeah.
Not a doubt about that. So, and then I don't know. I think when I turned 30, I might have had like a midlife crisis a little early. I just all of a sudden was just like, oh my God, like what's happening? I don't really know what happened. All I remember was I had a talk on a regional convention, and something hit me. I got off stage and I'm seeing, I'm reading an outline, and part of me all of a sudden realized that none of this is my words. I am a puppet. And then not only am I a puppet, there's two men off stage as I'm getting off, making sure I am a puppet. Do you follow the outline? Are you saying anything wrong? And when I got off stage, I just had like this sick feeling in my stomach. It was strange. I'll never forget it. And it just wouldn't go away. And then eventually I sabotaged my privileges, and I stepped down. I was like, you know what, guys, I don't think I qualify anymore. And then basically what I think happened 2020, I think a lot of people getting out of the routine with the pandemic, that coupled with getting completely reamed by brothers that I worked with and almost put out of business by them. And then watching elders, you're always told, put everything in writing. Here I have everything in writing. And they're telling me, well, go to court. And I'm like, well, but the Bible says don't go to court. And you're supposed to help me. And then they're like, well, we can't really help you. And I'm like, oh, great.
I feel like we need to back up a little bit at this point. Yeah. What's all this about going to court? So first of all, you were an elder up until the age of 31. Are you able to put a year on that so we can understand the proximity to recent times?
Yeah, so 2018.
2018, okay. Yeah. And you were still involved, it seems, as a Jehovah's Witness right through to 2020?
Yes, well, I disassociated probably 3 months ago in 2021. So we're talking, maybe June, July this year. Yeah.
So after stepping down as an elder, you were still involved as a witness, probably even as a believing witness for 2 years, roughly.
Absolutely.
And what was all this about going to court?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm part of a company that is actually mostly witnesses. It's a franchise, and these were also brothers that I I call them brothers, not anymore, but people that I kind of helped qualify. I guess I vouched for them on elder bodies saying, hey, let's try to get these people appointed. Like I was voting for them. And then in my position, they basically at the same time, two different individuals just cut me off. They wouldn't communicate with me, and they were both appointed elders at this point. So, they stopped talking to me. They stopped paying me. It stopped. And I literally had to.
Oh, so you're talking, when you say they cut you off, you're talking in terms of business.
Yeah, financially. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then, couple that with a pandemic, and you can imagine the financial ramifications were amped up quite a bit. And I think it was enough to shake me, because I think almost everyone who wakes up has something that just hits you hard. And once that happened, and I saw I was getting a bad reputation, like people were looking at me like the bad guy for causing a stink about this. And I could just see it happening. I'd never had a bad reputation in my life. I think it was the first time I was like, I felt wrath, and I was like, wow, this is shocking. Like I'm positive that I have a good case here, and I wasn't getting, I'm not the elder anymore. I'm the guy who screwed up. So, that really started the ball rolling. And about, I would say last winter is when I discovered, I think one morning I'm sitting at a Zoom meeting, just bored out of my mind. And I was like, I should read Crisis of Conscience. And I got onto iBooks, and I was going to download it and buy it, but I still couldn't do it. I was like, no, it's apostate. I can't. But right below it, there was this essay written by this guy. What's his name? Russell Walker. And I think it's called Leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. And I read it in 6 hours, and I was awake. It was just everything that, I think a lot like probably yourself, you had all these ideas, I think scientifically, I'm looking at creation. I'm looking at creation. What do I call creation? I look at nature, and I have these feelings already. And then you read this book, and someone's done research, puts it together. I was awake. I'm like, let me YouTube. Someone told me something about some guy on YouTube that does this. And that's when I found you, and it was just nonstop for a couple months. So yeah, it all happens. It happens fast. I think when you're that far in, I think fringe witnesses, believe it or not, hang on longer because maybe they didn't do the math. They didn't know 607 was such a big deal, But when you've done that research because you're supposed to, and you're like, wait a second, that didn't happen. So 1914's crap, 1919 didn't happen. This is all garbage, and it's over. Wow.
So you really kind of crashed out in a short space of time.
Yeah.
How long ago? How many months ago was it that you first went on my channel?
I think it was January 2021. So only about months ago.
That's the Tibor era. That's very recent.
Yeah, very.
So, okay. So it sounds as though maybe a combination of seeing what the organization is like on the inside. You were at Brooklyn, albeit for 6 months. You were an elder for 5 years. Also, it sounds like you've been screwed over in business by essentially friends, people that you vouched for, and they've screwed you over. And a combination perhaps of the pandemic where you're slightly disconnected, albeit still on Zoom, but being on Zoom, you have a bit more time because you're in your own house and a bit more bandwidth to start thinking outside the box. Would you say kind of a combination of those factors contributed to you eventually waking up?
Yeah. And then I think the clincher is always when you tell your first person, right? And at some point, I have a son. He's 7 now, and I was speaking with a family member, and I was just like, I read these blood verses, and I don't see this applying to blood transfusions. I'm like, if he's sick, I'm pretty positive I'm going to give him a blood transfusion. And then, so basically, my father calls me, and if I'm ever blessed enough for my mother and father to hear this, this is not a criticism on them. These are people respond the way they're programmed to respond. So I don't hate them for this, but, my dad calls me and he's just like, so I hear you're having some doubts. I'm like, actually, I think it's a doomsday cult. And
you laid it on strong there.
yeah, I don't do, in case you haven't noticed, I do things quickly.
Yeah.
I can't beat around the bush. And then the first thing my mother says is, don't come to the hospital when your father has a heart attack. First thing, and I'm just like, how about ask me why? Right? Like, what are you saying this for? No, it's just an immediate cutoff. Unfortunately, the same thing happened at the beginning in my marriage. It disintegrated. You watch people that used to think you were respectable, I should say, tune you out and not even give you a voice. And I think that is what really shook me. And I think that's when I think I called you. I left you a voicemail this one time because, I realized most people dignify others by saying, hey, I'm going to get disfellowshipped. I'm not going to see you for a while. And they go around and they talk to people. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a voice. People aren't letting me say why. So I'm not going to that now go out of my way when you're going to cut me off the rest of your life to go say goodbye to you. And I kind of think I had a point in doing that. I wanted it to be shocking. I have very close people that I love dearly, and I just disassociated. And they didn't get a phone call. They didn't get any news. And I'm hoping that it's jarring enough for them to one day wonder why. And, and that's why I think I appreciate all your work and being able to speak with you. Maybe one day they'll get to find it, that it wasn't someone losing their mind. There were reasons, and you just get shut off.
Obviously, this is your story, and you need to share as much or as little as you want, but you have alluded to the fact that this has impacted on your marriage.
Yeah.
Are you able to expand on that at all?
Yeah. I'm separated. We're getting divorced. It's unfortunate. And what's interesting, she's getting better as time goes on, supporting my new life, but when it happens, and that is what your marriage is based on as a witness most of the time, sometimes you're lucky where you're already just, this sounds bad, but you're just best friends, and some people stick around. But there are a number of us where, yeah, we were good friends, but the religion was when everything hits the fan, which happens in every marriage, that keeps you together. And when that disintegrated, I just saw, for me to be told, yes, I want you to still be in my life, but you can't talk to me about these things. I don't know that I could have lived like that. And then how do I keep my son from thinking that I'm a bad person when he just sees me not on a Zoom meeting and all he's going to think is, oh, daddy's not a good person. There's a lot of challenging circumstances that happen when the cult is your entire life and you wake up. So
I think it's quite telling, I don't want to pry, but it's quite telling that you describe the relationship as being good friends.
Yeah.
I think if you feel it's more than good friends, then you might feel more inclined to fight for it. Do you feel that you fought for your relationship, or do you feel as though you kind of felt it was doomed from the outset when you woke up?
That's a good question. I do think that I had a little bit of hope at the beginning, but I just quickly got this vibe of, it's not going to that she doesn't want to hear this. She doesn't want me to talk. And this is the most important thing I've ever discovered. And so, when you're, and I'm part of a Discord group of ex-elders, and I got invited after I made a post on Reddit. It's a great group. If there are ex-elders, it's good because what it's good for is you see other people who have been in the same position. And unfortunately, the position that you're in when you wake up and you have someone who doesn't want to as your spouse, you either have to now keep your mouth shut. Like basically they can live their social life, right? Like if you make a stand, like I knew I was going to disassociate because I didn't want to be involved with it. So I'm going to lose my entire family. I'm going to lose everyone I've ever met. And now I have a spouse who won't let me say what I really think, how I feel. So they're going to live their normal life. They can go to the social gatherings with all their friends in the hall, and I won't be able to go. But then now am I allowed to bring worldly friends into the house? Probably not. Not a lot of spouses are going to want that influence in their home. And so you're in prison. And there are a lot of ex-elders, some that are currently serving, and they're just like, I love my wife. I love her. I'm in prison. I have to keep faking. I have to give talks. I have to do all these things. It's rough. It's literally a prison. And I think I have possibly done more to fight? Possibly. But to what end? I don't think she wants to wake up. I think, and that's fine. Everyone's allowed to believe what they want to believe. But it literally is, it's a prison. So what are you left to do? And I decided, and I was honest with her. I said, I'm going to go start a new life and hopefully a new family, because I'm never going to have the one that I was born into.
Could you have imagined staying with your wife if she'd have woken up with you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think so for sure. It's a big deal to wake up, it shatters your earth. So you need someone, you do need someone that understands what's going on. Even if, being shut out, I don't think is a possibility to make it work.
And you taking you back to what you said about being an elder for 5 years, are you able to share anything from that experience? Because, speaking for myself, just the year that I was an elder was enough, I feel, for me to kind of get a glimpse into the inner workings of the organization so that I could see how human it is, kind of the higher you ascend. Mm-hmm. What was your experience of being an elder?
Yeah. And that's funny too. I think growing up around Bethel, I did expect it to be human. I had seen enough that I don't think I was going to be surprised, and growing up with father uncles that always talk about being, I expected that, but there looking back, there was one thing that really shocked me. So we had a worldly person accuse a member of a congregation for inappropriate touching. And it was on a minor. So it would have been child sexual abuse. And it came to the attention of the body. And I remember one meeting, and the conversation is crazy when I look back, because they're like, well, we have this accusation, but it is a worldly girl. I mean, they can say anything. And, I was like, okay, but maybe we should give a little bit of credence. And enough people thought, all right, let's look into it. So they called the branch and they did the whole, it's not required to report this. And so that was what was brought back to me. And I asked the question, I was like, so it's not required, but does that mean we shouldn't? I'm like, I don't understand this term. This is not required. Like, we can still report it, right? Because I think we all kind of had a vibe, something wasn't right with this individual. And the coordinator looked at me and was just like, it's not required. I was like, yeah, but we look at the Catholic Church and we say, they're not police officers. They're not qualified to handle this. How are we different? And literally he just looked at me and said, we're under prayer right now, so I think we're ready to move on. I was like, okay, my bad. But, it turns out that there was some things going on. The wife later left him, and there was some things happening. And my son was terrified of this person, even just by looking at him. You know how kids have that sixth sense? They just know someone's dangerous. And he would always just cry or avoid him. And now I remember being scared. I'm like, how are parents going to know to avoid this individual who's just mingling? So that was confusing to me. The way that was handled, not being required and acting like we're police officers. So, once I woke up, I look back and I'm like, geez, how did I not notice what we had a dangerous person in our congregation? We just let it fly. But when you're in it, it doesn't wake you up. I don't know how.
So I have to, now that you've told me this, I now have to ask some questions. So was this individual ever reported to the authorities?
Yeah, eventually.
Good.
Thank God. Yeah, I think the wife did. So eventually it got reported. I don't know how it went down, but it wasn't great. But it did take a while, and I don't think anyone in the congregation had any idea.
So it wasn't reported. It was reported eventually, but not through the elders.
Correct. Yeah. No, there was nothing said about it.
Good. I'm just relieved because whenever I interview someone and they say, "Oh, I had this child sexual abuse experience," in my head I'm thinking, "Please say it was reported. Please say it was reported," because I think sometimes there can be the temptation to think, "But that was." I'm distanced from this because that was what I was experiencing as a witness, and now I'm free and I don't need to think about it. But no, all of these individuals need to be reported so that children can be protected, So I'm glad that justice has been allowed to intervene there.
Yeah, well, no credit to what the elders did, but yes.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, and I think also sometimes just the reality of how you're governed by a book, like that shepherding book, it's bizarre. There isn't much room for thought, for logic. Looking back, I remember one time, it's just the weirdest story. So there was this married couple. They were both baptized. They had a kid. They were together for so many years. And long story short, they find out that the husband was never formally divorced from a previous relationship in the country where he came from. And we're talking 15 years earlier. So now what happened was they realized that their marriage at that point was not legal, which means they were baptized while living in fornication, and they nullified the wife's baptism. And I'm just like, if there's a Jehovah, right? Do you think he's a little bigger than this issue? Right? Like, don't you think we can take a step back and not have to make this person feel like garbage because her husband lied to her about a divorce and then made her get rebaptized? That there's that Bethel, we call it Bethel weird, which is a real thing.
Oh, so that's very interesting. So the woman wasn't disfellowshipped, her baptism was nullified, and she had to they kind of put her in the bath or something.
Yeah, basically it was like rededication. I mean, it's like, is God that petty? Can he not figure this out? But that's a very Bethel mindset. I was serving with many Bethelites, and it's just by the book, and there is no emotion, there's no thought. It's just bam, bam, bam. And
was he disfellowshipped?
Yeah. He eventually, he left. He left her. So, but yeah, you just get this lack of thought or human thinking, that you see, because it's just a textbook, and you're a robot. So thankfully I didn't have many judicial committees. Pretty much all I ever had to do was help people with porn, and I was like, hey, I know all about that. So that's interesting. So you were approached as an elder, were you, by people who struggled themselves with porn, even though that had been something you'd been struggling with? So how did you deal with those situations? It's the biggest, I don't know. So that's a great question you asked, because I was always told, hey, when I had my issues, we're going to give you support and help. I have no idea what support and help you can give someone. Like I don't know if I even got help and support. And I had gone a few times to confess things, like how do you help someone who has a normal desire? It's like, lock your phone, and that lasts for a solid week until you try to figure the code out, basically it was more of a guilt or shame thing that you just try to help people get through. And then it's awkward. If it's a man, then now you got to go sit down with the wife. And because that's part of the elder book, if someone confesses, you now have to go comfort the wife. So now you're two dudes showing up to talk to another man's wife about how she's handling. Oh, this is if you have privileges, I should say, because if they're going to continue as a ministerial servant or an elder, the wife has to be okay with that. Because if she's bothered, well, then he can't have privileges. So now you got to go and discuss this. Like, I remember one time I'm just like, how do you even ask, how are you handling your husband's porn problem? Like it was the weirdest thing. And I would just ask, how are you? Are you okay? Is everything good? And he's sitting right there. It's just weird. So I don't know how you help someone. And I've never seen someone effectively helped. It's just confession. It's just a confession and a guilt.
You were trying to follow the instructions, but the instructions were fairly vague and just basically put you in an awkward situation. Would that be?
Yeah, it's just weird. Yeah, it's very weird. But yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly. It's a play. It's everywhere. It's in every hall. Bethel. I mean, I remember we sat in there's a lot of brothers only meetings in Bethel. And I mean, the entire talk, I mean, we saw Pillowgate, that's all they're talking about. Before videos, they did it in conference rooms with all brothers. So I don't know that there is any help. And looking back, it literally just adds anxiety and stress to everyone.
You saw Pillowgate?
Oh, sure. Oh,
as a believing Jehovah's Witness? No,
that was during my binge.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that was after I woke up. But I mean, I don't think Pillowgate's not unique. It's just we have it on video because of the pandemic. But that same thing, when I was in Brooklyn 13 years ago, we sat there and there was an old school brother who's, I don't know, maybe 75, 80. And he was talking and he was being interviewed by a department overseer in front of all brothers. And the guy's like, so if you're having problems with masturbation or pornography, like, come on forward. And the older guy's like, you're telling me there's people in this audience who viewed pornography? And he's like, yeah. And the older guy was like, oh my God, times have changed. So, these same talks have probably happened every year, twice a year, as you just got it on video finally.
Yeah, let's save the awkwardness of having to give these talks all the time. We can just stick Gary Bro and Ralph Walls on, and they'll handle it for us.
Hands down. Yeah.
And do you feel any regret over any of the anything that you did as an elder in terms of because you were essentially interfering in people's lives, weren't you? And do you ever kind of look back and kind of cringe at some of the stuff that you did or were expected to do?
I don't think it's exclusive because of being an elder. I think I have regrets now for people that I shunned. The first thing I did, I had like one of my best friends growing up, pioneered with him, got disfellowshipped for gay pornography at the time, which is, by the way, I don't know. I mean, that's just the most bizarre thing, that you can watch as much heterosexual porn as you want.
Yeah.
But if it's gay, well, now it's judicial.
Yeah.
And I think he thought that was crazy and was trying to change the policy. He's like, guys, this isn't fair, and he got disfellowshipped, and I shunned him. And I didn't see him for, maybe 4 months ago was the first time I saw him in 7 years. Right when I woke up, I called him. I'm like, bro, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I think those are the regrets is the shutting, what you did to shut people out unknowingly. But as an elder, I'd have to really think about that. I mean, I think you do micromanage a lot, but Thankfully, I avoided judicial committees. I didn't disfellowship anybody. I didn't have to get down that road, thank God. So most of my regrets come from just looking at the big picture and realizing the damage and emotional trauma that I caused other people by thinking that they were, evil when they left.
Mm. Yeah. And when you're an elder, you're kind of making yourself a cog in the machinery, albeit I think what some who have never been elders or never could be elders don't understand is the amount of pressure that's on you as a man to be an elder. Oh. So if you're not remotely interested, if you're a remotely kind of intelligent, coherent individual that doesn't have massive kind of antisocial behavior problems, mm-hmm. and you're not, quote unquote, reaching out to be a servant and then an elder, it's a massive issue, isn't it? It's like, what on earth is wrong with you? So there's a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah, that's the conversation on the elder body. It's just like, why aren't they trying? Why aren't they reaching out? It doesn't make sense. Yeah. I mean, no, it's expected, and I think that was part of what hit me as I had my little crisis. Was all I'm doing is what I'm expected to do, and that there is no room for who you are or what you would like to do. So yeah, there's no question. It's just, and especially around Bethel, we always used to joke, things are different when you leave the Bethel area. And it's true. We would joke about California or Florida and be like, oh my God, it's crazy down there, because we're in our little bubble and it's real. People who are in that radius and have Bethelites, probably in every country, wherever that is, it's a stronger pull than elsewhere.
The gravity towards the Bethel headquarters, yeah. And obviously things are very recent still in terms of your waking up process. When exactly was it that you disassociated?
I have to look at my letter, but I think it was either June or July of this year, 2020.
Right. So June or July of this year, that's very, very recent. And, those of us who've kind of been out for a while now, think back to that time of actually disassociating and actually kind of parting ways with the organization as an incredibly stressful, even traumatic period, that it does calm down eventually. And what you're left with is something that's much, much better than what you had originally. But it's nevertheless a stressful period. And I'm just wondering how you're feeling in terms of kind of your mental health. And do you kind of look forward to there being a bit more water under the bridge?
Great question. It's difficult enough to where I will regularly think that this just shouldn't exist on the planet. It's otherworldly hard to just lose, because when you're in this, and it's not just a church. This is literally your everything, and it just goes away, and it doesn't just go away. Like I call it cult corner, the house that my ex now lives in with my son, and next door is 3 witness couples, I'll pass them. And it's to the point where you don't get eye contact. I mean, so you go from everything to now being worse than the worst person on the planet. Never mind if they think that you're somewhat of an activist. So I think to say that I have had some of the most brutal breakdowns of my life during this would be completely accurate. I mean, saying goodbye to my brother for the last time, it's like, it's a funeral. It's an absolute funeral. So yeah, it's terrible. But at the same time, I think I try to fight and think big picture, think about my son, think about what he can accomplish, and then not give up on my life either. We all have lives, no matter how old we are when we wake up. Let's enjoy it. Let's make the best out of it.
Have there not been any issues over custody?
Well, we're still going through it, but Thank God, no. It's been a kind separation. So,
Mm.
I'm still able to see him all the time, basically every day. Um, but it, he's a large reason of why I'm making a lot of the stands you have to make, because he's 7. He's already a separatist in his core. I mean, it is who he is already. He'll say all the time, like, why doesn't everybody know Jehovah, Daddy? What about paradise? And maybe in the paradise I'll have more brothers and sisters. And he it's sad because there's nothing I can do. It's already there. But I'm hoping I'm to play the long game. I'd like to have his relationship when he's an adult, for his whole adult life, like I wish I could have with my father now, versus only having him as a young man, then watch him get baptized and have him cut me off. That's my nightmare. So it's a battle, and it's scary, but like you said, it's a rough thing waking up from a cult.
Do you feel rage?
Ooh, rage. There are moments, but I'm not like a rage person. But I do get pissed. Yeah, there's moments where you can get pissed. It's not fair. It's unjust. It's not just that you're leaving something. It's that you can prove it, and you're not being given a voice. And I mean, that's just, how does that not make someone a little bit crazy? But yeah, I mean, I think at this point I'm recovering. I'm slowly recovering. I feel optimistic about my future. I've never really been too down, but there are scary moments for everyone, and we all have to go through it.
And if any of your believing family, I use that word cautiously because I think we build our own family, don't we? But if any of your believing relatives or any of your former friends who are witnesses were to stumble on this video, what would be your message to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not insane. Everything's fine. But there's an important thing going on right now. And I think, and it's not just among witnesses, I think it's a cultural thing where we need to really question what it is where these religions are based on. What are you being told? Why are you being told to hide? Why this obsession about avoiding information? In what planet is more information bad? So mostly just I would hope that people would just do the research, look, and it's easy. You say it all the time. You have to do the research. You have to look it up. Do these people that are saying it wasn't 607 really, is it just Satan trying to throw things into confusion? Or are these masters at their technology of what they do? They can tell you when these things happened. It all works. You just gotta do the research. So, and hopefully in time, more people will wake up from whatever their indoctrination is. It could be, one thing that your channel has helped me to see too is it's not just us. And, that's one comment I made my uncle who works in the service department, right before, when he knew I was going down this path, he sent me some daily text about apostates, trying to encourage me. And I was like, listen, unfortunately, what I found out is we are Mormons who were born in Salt Lake City. It's the same thing. I was born in a religion, a cultist religion, high control religion in the world headquarters. And so was he. And it's big. It's much bigger than just us. But for all of my family, I just hope that research gets done and we can stop causing people to have anxiety, depression, feel worthless, and really not contribute anything meaningful to society. At some point, that has to stop.
Well said. And hopefully, despite feeling as though you were denied a voice, as a witness and during your period of waking up. Hopefully you feel as though you have a voice now, at least. And as you said, the more voices we hear, both on the channel, elsewhere on YouTube, in books, in blogs, on Reddit, what have you, the more we realize that we're not alone. And, the more we realize that this is a wider struggle. And we feel as though we're part of a collective rather than simply fighting our corner. So thank you for contributing to that chorus of voices. I really appreciate it.
Oh, please. Thank you for the opportunity. It's awesome to be able to have someone to listen. So it means a lot.
Thank you, Luke. So viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I know I have. Don't forget that you can see more such videos by subscribing to the Lloyd Evans channel, but that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for watching.